I woke up about, I don't know, 10 o'clock last night. I was just starting to doze off, and I realized that Keith said last week he wasn't going to be here. So, man, I jumped on the phone this morning and I called a good friend of mine, Jesse Hernandez, who's been working with a lot of my clientele, and he came to Hyperbaric Plus. He's been working with a lot of our guys in the chamber, guys and gals. He's in the chamber and he's answering questions just like Keith does. So it's another one of our specialty dives, another one of our specialty segments that you can learn things about, other possible therapies that are out there. So I'm Paul with Hyperbaric.plus. This is Jesse Hernandez, and today we're going to talk about peptides. So Jesse, do you have a way to lead into this about the fact that you're not a doctor? So if you'll just kind of give the game, the rules to the game. Sure. Of how we're going to talk about this. I don't want to get in trouble on YouTube, which is what some of this can lead to. So we try to watch what we say.
Well, it's pretty simple. I actually mentioned it yesterday in one of our dives. The way that I talk about it is this. I'm a researcher just like everybody else. I'm just ahead of the game. There's a lot of information out there available to everybody. And I've just been researching on my own for a long time now, going on 3 to 4 years. And so I'm just happy to, tell my story and help people learn about the thing that I've learned about. It's interesting because, as we mentioned on the first podcast that I did with you, my journey started with weight loss. So that's where the majority of my expertise comes in. And then, as I've met with a lot of people at the dive chamber and people throughout my life, there's more to it than just weight loss and cosmetics. There's people actually needing real help with injuries, diseases, and it just goes so deep that, I have the way that I research things and the information as I'm able to find it, and I'm happy to share it. So yeah, I'm not a doctor. Sometimes it feels like I play doctor on myself though, but I'm just happy to help.
Well, you are a wealth of information. I've brought a lot of different issues to you that we sit down and talk about. And then I know you go off and do a lot of research on it. And you come back and you're able to work with my clients who have positive results. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So not that we're going to cure anything, but man, if we can make it easier to live with ourselves, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So to kind of touch on the GLP products, a lot of times when we see a lot of things through doctors that and you see a lot of stuff on the GLP products on social media and on the news, that it can actually hurt your digestive system where it quits operating properly. So I know the first time you and I talked, and my wife's working with you, and the first time we talked, it was all about microdosing. So how do you ease into, because a lot of people have understanding of GLP products. So how do you ease into the microdosing just to find a starting point? And it's not like you have to lose all this weight in 30 days. I mean, we didn't put it on in 30 days, so why don't we do a methodical way of losing it? So speak to that.
You're absolutely right. And I'll just try to keep track of you asked a lot there, so I'll try to keep track of it. So as it pertains to GLP-1s hurting people, I mean, there's no free lunch anywhere. You take too many aspirin and you're going to wind up in hospital. So anything you take can hurt you if you go above and beyond what's recommended. That being said, there are your standard, nausea, upset stomach, stuff like that. But it does slow your gastric system down to where, the food in your stomach, whereas if you were, eating and then, doing all the business there, it's out of your system in anywhere from 6 to 15 hours. And the GLP-1s, it slows it down. And so there are risks associated with that. But typically for mainstream people and the people that I say that are not on the ends of the spectrum, for the average person who's on the GLP-1s, there's really no issues. You may have diarrhea and constipation, but it's well treated. And I've been on them now for 3 years. So it's not like it's a big problem, but there are those that have had major issues. And so you just have to, approach it from a standpoint of being as careful as you can. Don't try to be that tough guy or tough lady who just, my upset stomach is really hurting, but I'm going to tough it out. if you have an issue, you need to go get it checked out if it's something outside of the ordinary. But again, for the most part, it's well tolerated. The safety profile on it's pretty big for the vast majority of the public. That being said, you asked in the microdose, how do you titrate things? Okay, yeah, we'll put this on there. How do you titrate it? Well, the semaglutide, which is Ozempic, and then the tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro, they're well researched. They're already being prescribed, as everybody knows that. There's pins, so the dosing schedule is already out there for those. So those are very, very easy to do. If somebody says, well, what would you do? Well, I know what I've done because a doctor's prescribed it to me. I can just tell you exactly what was done for me. That may not work for you. Everybody's different. But again, the ones that are already being prescribed, Ozempic, Mounjaro, the dosing schedules are out there. You can go on any chat search or AI and ask, what should the titration schedule be for this specific GLP-1, and it's there, boom. Then you go to the next big dog, which is retatrutide. It's my personal favorite. And so these dosing schedules aren't readily available for that. However, there are studies that you can research that they've done for like phase 1 and phase 2. And that's how I did my dosing. Whenever I started it was, I looked at the research, and the research told me, it's 2 milligrams, 5 milligrams, 7 milligrams. And then you just kind of pick your doses that you want. I'm a big scaredy cat. So I always go extremely conservative. I started.
Keyword there's big.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big scaredy cat. I don't want to, I love researching, but I don't want to be the guy that's in the airplane that's brand new and they're trying to see if we can go Mach 8 in it. There's inherent risk in being the test dummy, if you will. So I try to stick to what's tried and true, and that goes for everything that I do. I had an issue whenever I was a kid. I think I used the aspirin example. I took too many aspirin, and I was, throwing up. And, for me growing up, aspirin was all, you got a headache, take an aspirin, it'll fix it. So mistakes can be made on both ends. It's just I take a conservative approach. So the microdosing is great, but if you really want to go and get the therapeutic levels for the weight loss, which is what most people are looking for, you really have to look into the tried and true methods, which doctors are prescribing those. And I'm not a huge fan of their schedules. I just use the actual dosing blocks to see what I personally need. The tirzepatide is one. It's one of my personal favorites, especially after I got off of semaglutide. The doctors will give you these pins, 2.5 milligrams, 5 milligrams, and they stair-step them all the way up. But for me, what I realized whenever I was doing my research is that I didn't need 5 milligrams. I needed 4. And so I was very successful in 4 milligrams, and then I bumped up to 5. Instead of going from 5 milligrams to 7.5, I went to 6, so on and so forth. So I really am enjoying being able to research myself and have the freedom to dose what I think that I need. And I take full responsibility for myself. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of times where I've had an upset stomach and I've thought, oh no, is something wrong? And it's just me being a worry wart, if you'd say. But like I said, there's risk in everything. You just have to see what your tolerance for risk is. And just going back to the safety profile. The safety profile is pretty big.
Well, I just wanted to kind of start on GLP products because a lot of people have heard of those, but probably the one that's getting ready to eclipse it, if it hadn't already, would be BPC 157. Really is, I've heard it discussed as a foundational peptide. No matter what you're dealing with, the body needs that signaling of that's really the low-hanging fruit. That's a place to start on just about any. Even a client of mine recently went to his medical doctor and put him on BPC 157 for his chronic kidney disease. He said, hey, we're going to start this by making your body right. Yeah. So we're going to start this, and then we're going to monitor what happens, just making the foundation right. So what do you see? I mean, I'm hearing all kinds of things with 157, just 157 and musculoskeletal issues where, they've hurt themselves and they're trying to rebound. It may even be I had a guy that jumped off a roof because he was falling off. He jumped off and landed on his heels and fractured both, not fractured, shattered both heels. And he was laid up for a long time, and he's had pain ever since. And he's at church, and he's walking around telling everybody about the peptides he got on. Yeah. And all that pain, he said, in it was a very short time, like 3 days, that pain was gone, never returned.
That's amazing, you know, and that type of review or result is common with the BPC 157 because of how great it is. Obviously, you know, it's not a magic pill or a magic shot that is going to replace a missing arm or something like that. But in certain cases, you know, it's extremely effective, you know. So to answer your question, what do I think about BPC? Is it going to be the big monster over GLP-1s? I think there's enough space, you know, for peptides for what they're designed to do. GLP-1 is a big one because there's the United States is, you know, overweight. We're overweight, and so right now that one seems to be the hottest one. But you know, take me for example. Once I stop being overweight, then I'm asking myself what's next, and then you go into the foundational, you know, peptide that is BPC 157, and I fully agree and I support that. You know, you have to have a foundation of healing and getting your body back into the efficiency range when you were younger. And we talk about this a lot in my research group. And a research group is a really fancy way for me to say the people within my circle that we bounce ideas off of. And it's interesting to see everybody has a different take. And so within my research group, we talk about BPC 157 all the time, and it is a foundational peptide, and it can do so many things. You know, people take specific peptides for one thing, but as we're finding out now, the peptides can do so much more, because if you think about it, like it's a woven pattern that your body is, and one peptide, you may be taking it for one certain thing, but it can help another that you didn't even realize that you had. And there's no way of knowing that it actually helped you, but that's what's so great about these things, is that they interweave between, you know, symptoms and issues, and it's extremely helpful.
Well, so you and I have talked, and I don't know where you've come on this. I probably ought to pause here, and this last week, somebody that's near and dear to me, that's been working with me off and on since 2017, Twyla Wilson, Dr. Twyla Wilson, who is a naturopath. Hey, Ryan, you unplug that beeper back there. So Twyla Wilson, we were getting ready to take off on brain mapping. We got a big project with 2 different paths, I think. One is both of them are PTSD related, and using hyperbarics to treat PTSD is really how I got into this business. And so we were starting down a path, and she was fighting cancer, and her cancer came back, and the same week she had a heart attack, and she's no longer with us. So a lot of my clientele know Twyla. They worked with her, and talk about a shock. Quite a shock. I know you all have been talking quite a bit about peptides. Yep. She was kind of headed down the path of marine peptides, which is another whole ball of, I don't want to pull that thread because it goes all over the place, but she really had come a long ways wanting to deal with peptides and the brain mapping. And so she's no longer with us. So we kind of been reeling from that around here. But you and I started talking about her specialty was the Bredesen. She was Bredesen certified level 2, and he wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's, and there's a lot of things coming out now of how peptides will address these cognitive issues. Have you, I know we talked a month or 2 ago about that, and you really hadn't looked into it much. I'm just wondering, have you made any headway on that?
So I definitely have made some headway in it, and there's a couple of peptides that I've been looking at to help people with, like, anything mental or decline of your mental status, as well as like brain diseases and stuff, which those are pretty heavy. So I'm going to move forward cautiously as we talk about those. But, you know, you talk about depression, brain fog, stuff like that. I definitely have made some headway in my research. There was a peptide that I think is extremely interesting. I literally just found it probably 3 weeks ago. So there's a lot more research to be done. For, you know, the users watching, there's one that if you got a pen, I'd write this one down. It seems to be pretty awesome. It is 22-28. Funny name. Sounds like a name from Star Wars, like a robot, but it's actually, I did a little bit of research on it so far. It seems to be very promising for depression, mental fog, and just getting people's general moods enhanced. And for me, that's a powerful one because in today's world, a lot of people are unhappy for one reason or another, and your mood, the way that you take the day on, when you wake up, if you're in a bad mood, it's gonna make your day challenging to overcome. So I think in a lot of ways, if we can lose the weight, fix our aches and pains, and then make our moods better, we're going to be so much healthier than before.
So have you talked about yogurt with any of my clients? Are you familiar about the fact that most, probably 50% of my clients were on yogurt? Mm-hmm. Some of them took it to the really deep level. Had I had any idea, if you ever start yogurt, one thing that's very important, you start with a tablespoon. First day is a tablespoon, and just check and see if you're going to have a response to it. Mm-hmm. Because if you are heavy bacteria, if you got a lot of bacteria in your gut, you're going to kill some of that bacteria. And if you're eating or I've had some people say, man, this yogurt's great, and they ate 8 ounces or 12 ounces, they just quit eating, that's going to be detrimental. Yeah. So if you don't have an issue, you're probably fine with it. But I eat 4 ounces of yogurt a day, man, and I tell you what, it suppresses my appetite. My mood. I mean, talk about something that I think has a lot to do with depression. When you get your gut right, and that's what yogurt's doing, is it's balancing out that gut. Mm-hmm. If your gut's bad, you're going to be bad. I mean, everything starts there. Yep. And it's absolutely connected to the brain, and people just don't realize how important that is.
So I talked to my wife about the yogurt. I don't know if she's on board about making her own yet, but she is buying yogurts and stuff. So we've definitely been experimenting with the yogurt.
Well, the whole thing about it is you don't buy it because it's going to have sugar in it. The yogurt we're talking about is full of microbes, L-reuteri. We're talking about foundational things in peptides. Well, a foundational item in microbes that are in your gut is L-reuteri. And so a lot of my clients, we all start with L-reuteri. And some of my clients, if you read the book Super Gut, then you kind of get the idea of what's going on, and you can find those other microbes as you educate yourself about your body and about your brain, your personality. All that is connected. As you start understanding what microbes can do and you start paying attention, then a lot of my clients are adding other microbes to that yogurt. And it's incredible, and it's so simple. But we need to talk more about yogurt so you can be a little smarter.
I am a work in progress.
Yeah,
yes, just like anybody else. There are things that I need to fix myself. Yogurt being one of them.
So we already talked a little bit about kidney. I really want to, in fact, one of my clients, it's a friend of a friend that I was talking about, went to the doctor and got started on BPC 157. Just walked in, and that's how we met. He came in and, hey, how can I get my kidney numbers better? And, I don't know how many people are getting labs and watching their numbers for liver and kidney. But what's crazy, what I have found nuts, all the videos that I watch, there's a gal in Hawaii that she had kidney failure, and she corrected it herself without medication. And it's just crazy that between 120 and 90 in your GFR, between 120 and 90 in GFR, the doctors say we're normal. Well, that's actually stage 1 kidney disease. Above 120 is normal, but they're calling that normal. They're calling it normal even when you get from 90 to 60 in your GFR. We still don't have anything to be concerned about. That's stage 2 kidney failure.
It's crazy how everything is normal until you actually need them to intervene and you're in a crisis.
Yeah, why haven't we addressed them? We're way back here when what could we have done knowing what those numbers are? But if you look it up, that's exactly right, GFR. So when you hit 60 and you start going under 60, then they say, hey, we need to pay attention to your kidneys and let's do whatever it is that they're going to do. But they don't even start to respond until we get under 60. So I'm going to encourage everybody to get those labs out.
Yep.
Just see where you're at. And more importantly, get 6 labs out and see which way you're trending. Because that's what I want to know. Am I getting worse every month or every lab, every 6 months, every year, whatever that is? Just see what the trend is. And you want to try to reverse that trend. And so anyway, that's what I've got a couple of doctors I'm working with now. You and I talked about it a little bit. Where is a starting point? How do we make this thing go forward without hurting ourselves?
So that's actually a great point of discussion. When people ask me, hey, what would you do in this scenario? Of course, they're talking about their scenario. They're not asking about mine, but I always bring in, what I would do. First and foremost, you've got to get your levels. You got to get your levels checked, and there may be more markers that you need. But what I suggest to the men and women, and you can use whatever lab you want, but for me, it's very easy to use any labs now. There's a collection office or just a lab where they're at in Edmond, and I think there's one in Norman. But for me, it's extremely simple. Granted, I don't use my insurance. I just pay, I think it's $239 out of pocket, and I do that every 5 months. And what it is, it's a comprehensive male panel, and so I get all of those numbers. And I check myself, like I said, every 5 months. But if somebody really, is asking me to help guide them, again, I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you what I would do on my personal journey. I don't really like guessing. So, and nobody does.
So the guy that sits in that chair every week says, what, audience? Assess, don't guess. He's just, you got to go do the labs.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you make decisions that are going to change everything when you don't even know where you're at?
Absolutely.
And everybody that comes into my facility for whatever, the first thing I ask them when they come in is, what is a marker that we can measure? What is it that made you come in here that you're getting worse? What's that marker? Because if you don't have one, we're going to establish one today before you ever get in the chamber, because I want to be able to show you that it's doing you benefit. And if I can't show you that, you don't need to be spending money with me.
Right.
And then I've got the people that come in here and they go, well, I want to get in here because I got arthritis and I hurt real bad all the time. My first question is, do you still eat bread?
Yeah. I remember you asking me that.
I mean, do you eat sugar? I mean, are you still eating processed foods? Because if you are doing all that, it could be a waste. It will be a waste. And it's not a could. You're not going to get the benefit as if you were to address the things that don't cost money. Address those first. Maybe that pain goes away and you never get in the chamber. That'd be it. I mean, all you did was cut back on what you were eating.
I mean, everybody really wishes there was a one pill or one button that you could press to change your life. But the thing is, it's a lifestyle change. You can add the GLP-1s, you can add the BPC 157, you can add a bunch of things. But if you're not going to take the additional steps to really elevate your health, then, I mean, in some cases you'll see some results. But I mean, you're talking about long term. You're trying to add health and years to your life. Do you owe it to yourself to do more than just, I mean, if you're hopping in the tank once a week, I mean, that's great, but what else are you doing to help that,
So one of my clients that just walked in here, he tells everybody in the chamber, man, you got to do the work. You can know all this stuff and know what to do, but if you don't do the work, nothing changes. And so he tells me that every time he comes up here, and he just swam 10 miles. He got a big gym in the town he lives in, and he swims all the time. And he said, you got to do the work. If you don't do the work, everything else, they're just not a pill. Yep. Getting in here. Now, I will say, I'm not, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to add that if you're listening there and you yourself or someone who is in a bad state where you just don't have the motivation, maybe you do need to lose weight, maybe you are hurt. The thing is, we're talking about a long-term lifestyle change, but to get you started, these things definitely will stack up on themselves in a positive way. So if you're just going to get in this tank once a week, that's going to be the first step to getting to where you want to be. So don't think that you can't just get in this tank once a week and you're not doing enough. Take the little steps. You have to take the first step. So get in the tank, eat the yogurt, get a GLP-1. And what happens is, as you take that first step, you are starting to gain momentum. And it may take in the shape of a month, 2 months, a year. In my case, I lost my weight over 3 years. Like you said, it took you multiple years to get in the shape that you're in now. So we're being very real here that you can't just do one thing and expect it to change the entire scope of what you have going on. But you do need to take that step. Again, whether you take this step, yogurt, what have you, you take that step, and then one step turns into what? 2 to 3 to 4, so on and so forth, to where you get into my position where I've lost a lot of weight. I'm in great shape. I still want to do more, but I have people that, have worked with me over the last 7 years in Oklahoma saying, man, what have you done? You have changed.
I've liked this story about, so Jesse works in the oil field.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine the people that are in the oil field, the guys that are in the oil,
The toughest of the tough.
pretty rough group. And somebody came up to you and said,
Yeah, that's the craziest thing is an older gentleman. I'm 38. I turned 39 this year. So anybody that's older than me, I consider an older gentleman. But this guy was around 50. And he said to me, Jesse, what are you doing? Your skin looks fantastic. And we're talking about a big oil field guy who I've seen, work a 36-inch pipe wrench with oil base all over his face. He's asking me about my skin. But that's the awesome thing about the direction of peptides and health is that everybody's getting interested in it. It's no longer just for the upper elite socialites. It's everybody wants the health because health is wealth. So seeing him get involved in that was amazing. But going back to my discussion of getting started, you have to get started. You have to keep going, one foot in front of the other. And at the end of the day, as long as you've made one step and you challenge yourself to do it again tomorrow and the next day. I spoke with a woman just yesterday, and I explained to her that, it's baby steps. You have to challenge yourself. She was a woman who probably not as active as she wants to be as she's getting older. I challenged her to go walk for 10 minutes. 10 minutes this week. Next week it'll be 20. You have to get going and you have to get started. So yeah, while there's not a one-stop shop for everything, as long as you're moving, you're headed in the right direction.
I'm again about measurable results in here. And as we age, we all wonder if we're starting to see decline. So we want to be able to measure that. One of the easiest ways to measure, especially as we get older, is it's a 6-minute walk test. And you're going to be checking all kinds of things when you do this. You're going to put on a pulse oximeter and you're going to maintain above 89. You're going to go find a place that you can walk a distance on flat. I mean, if it's over here at the mall, North Park Mall, a lot of people go in there and they go walking. If it's at the track at the gym, if it's at the YMCA elevated track, wherever it is, mark it off. You want to know the distance that you can walk in 6 minutes without that pulse oximeter going below 89. So how fast can you walk and maintain above 89? If it gets below 89, you stop and you rest and you wait till the pulse ox comes up to at least 92 and then start walking again. But man, what a baseline. Why do we all, I haven't done it yet. I keep preaching about it, but I'm going to go do it and I'm going to start reporting on it. It's going to go on my little chart of things I measure.
We're all a work in progress.
So I got one of those BioScan the scales, $25. $25. Now, is it as exact as the $500 or $1,000 one at my doctor's office? Probably not. But it gives me an idea of which way I'm going. That's what I don't have to know the exact amount. Yep. Which way am I going? And so I've been showing pretty good. I got down to 207.
There you go.
Which I haven't weighed that since high school. It would have been early high school. I've always been a big boy. Mm-hmm. So, it's exciting to see the numbers change. And what's probably more important is I've got that baseline. I know when I'm getting worse again.
Another good one that you mentioned, that bioscanner, another one that I've utilized, not as much as I should, but a DEXA scan. There's multiple areas around here that have DEXA scans. And, my son, he was diagnosed with junior arthritis when he was 9. And, one of his markers that the doctors wouldn't treat was his alkaline phosphatase. And when I started getting his blood work done and me trying to supplement it, I found out that the alkaline phosphatase had also to do with brittle bones. And I was like, well, why are we not treating this? And the doctor told me it's because there's no symptoms of a low alkaline phosphatase. And I'm like, okay, he's breaking his bones every year. Like, what do you mean there's no symptoms? So what we did was I took him.
So he plays football.
He plays football, yeah, at a very high level.
They won the state champ last year.
Won the state championship. Yes, sir, we did. And so I've taken his health very seriously. He is in the best shape of his life. Looks like a bodybuilder now, and he I would swear he eats half a cow every month. He just eats so much. But one of the things that I did was I went to a DEXA scan because they measure what at a DEXA scan? Bone density. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing for the GLP-1s is for women, as you get older and you age, you lose your bone density. And so when you don't eat as much or you change your diet, it can negatively affect your bone density. So get yourself scanned, get you a bio marker like you have for your weight loss, your scale. Okay. There's so much things that you can do. But if you don't do anything, you'll never know. And so it just goes back to.
Well, it also gives you the encouragement to do the next thing. If you're measuring and watching, then you're going to say, well, what else can I do?
Yep.
But if you're not doing anything, that's never going to change.
That's right.
So I forgot to start this with saying, hey, thank you for y'all being here. And if you've got questions, Ryan has a way to print the questions off. We'd love to answer questions on peptides. Something that I kind of want to touch on. I had a client come in and they were in this group. And you were talking peptides, mm-hmm. and they left because there was such a large group. And she called me back and said, I need to talk to Jesse. And I said, where'd you go? And she said, well, there was too many people. And I said, well, you're going to ask him all the questions that they asked. Yeah. And to do it one-on-one is not fair to Jesse. That's why we do this group thing, so we can all ask the question and hear the answer, because it's probably a question I'm going to ask if I'm brand new to this. So anyway, I suggested to Jesse to figure out a way you want one-on-one? You're going to pay me a little bit of money to be one-on-one, or come to this event. Sure. You know, if you watch our newsletter, we try to schedule this out. This was a kind of a rapid put together, don't even have an agenda to work off of, but take that into consideration that we want to do this in a group setting and answer a lot of questions.
And
we'll do that online too, if you'll send in a question.
Uh-huh. So we did talk about this, Paul. And so, if you do want one-on-one consultation, I can definitely help you there. But what we really want.
And I wouldn't call it consultation.
What would you call it?
I would call it anything but that, because now you're getting into.
I apologize.
Again. No,
I apologize.
So this is all brand new, and people, you have to understand, when you go to your doctor and ask your doctor about peptides, half of the doctors are going like this. Yeah. They're just not going to have the conversation. They do have access to peptides. There are some that they have access to, but the ones that we're talking about most of the time in here are still designated as research.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that doctor can't get that research peptide and tell you to take it, because he's stepping outside his lane. He can't do that. Mm-hmm. And so that's why and it needs to change. We all need to be calling the FDA every day and saying, hey, cut RFK loose and let him do this the way that we're going to benefit, because in my mind, the other side's still benefiting greatly. Yeah. We need to equal that. If we're going to take care of our health and get educated about it, give us the flexibility to do that. I tell everybody, all this is information to take back to your doctor mm-hmm. and ask him the question. If you get online and you start researching this in chat, that's just to generate questions to go back to your doctor. Now, if your doctor is not going to help you with any of this, call me. I've got doctors that are working with my clients with peptides. So, but only the ones that are available, only the ones that are FDA approved. So,
what I really want, and thanks for correcting me, it's not a consultation.
So you're going to have a class. You're going to have a private class, and you're going to educate somebody.
Yeah.
This is not a private class. This is everybody at the same time.
Yeah, you guys are more than welcome to join the round table, and that's really what we want. Yep. We want to get everybody involved. So if you have time, you want to come check it out. I am pretty busy, but Paul and I stay in contact, and if we have enough interest, I'll come in on a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday, whatever you guys need, really.
Yep, no problem. So is there anything that I have not brought up that's a burning desire to tell people that know nothing about peptides?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of touched on
What's some other ones? What's some other types of ailments that you have worked with people on? We talked a little about skin. Complexion is huge.
Yeah, let's.
There are the collagen peptides. And let's just talk about that. Everybody goes, well, I went to Walmart and bought a bag of collagen peptides. So let's talk about that, because what is a peptide?
So peptide
At that at that level.
Yeah, peptide is a signaling molecule. Your body has thousands of them inside of it. And so really the thing about peptides is, as you get older, the signaling in your body, or your ability to produce certain, hormones, it reduces. So you get older and you start to feel the effects of that. The peptides can re-signal your body to do the stuff that it's supposed to do.
I'm just going to adjust that before it falls off.
Thank you. And so one that is not cosmetic based that I really, really enjoy, it's been a hot topic as of late, is KPV. It's a peptide, and it's probably one of the strongest, in my opinion, from my personal research. It has helped me the most for inflammation. And most of the inflammation is based due to your gut biomes. And the yogurt, I'm sure, will help with that drastically. But KPV has been a big one. I mentioned the one from the mood enhancers. Look up that one. Look up KPV. It's amazing. I recommend that one to pretty much anybody. For me, it could be considered a foundational one as well.
So just like KPV is copper.
KPV is not copper.
Which one is
GHKCU?
Okay.
Yes, and there's another one. So the GHKCU is the one that's mainstream. It's for the collagen, the hair, the skin. But there's another one that I personally need to research. It's AHKCU, and it is a copper peptide. But this one is actually specializes for hair. So,
but if you're going and getting labs, one of the things they look at in the labs you're talking about is copper.
Sure.
People that live in a house that's X years old, back in the day, they used to plumb our houses with copper. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those people are already very high in copper. So you don't just go, the starting point is to get those labs done. Because if you start doing things and you're going the wrong direction, you don't know it until you do labs.
You're so important. Right. It's like the spatial disorientation in an airplane. They talk about this. I got my private pilot license a long time ago, and one of the things when you fly in clouds is you have no idea where you're at. So you can think you're flying straight and level, but you're actually in a barrel roll upside down, heading straight for the ground. And as it pertains to not knowing your levels, you can definitely get yourself disoriented and not knowing what you're doing and make things even worse. There was a gentleman that I worked with. He was on testosterone replacement therapy, and it's really big for men that want to build muscle and stuff like that. But he had gotten his from his doctor, and they sent him with his bottle home, and so he liked how he was feeling, and he just thought more is better, more is better. Well, he had taken so much to where he started to feel bad, and he thought, oh, my testosterone must be low because his levels weren't checked, right? And so I think it was 3 or 4 months went by, and he was feeling terrible. Well, he went to his doctor, and they checked his level, and his level was like over 4,000. And the actual levels for men, the therapeutic levels are 300 to 900, and he was at 4,000. He actually could have messed himself up really bad, but it just goes back to the knowing where your levels are. Don't do stuff just blindly,
You think Keith was sitting here assessed? Don't guess. That's all he says all through every one of our deals. So are there any questions on peptides out here? Just out of curiosity. Ryan, do you have any questions? So
He's got a question.
Sir.
The 157 and either basic or whatever, I don't remember what the, and like TV5.
The Wolverine stack.
Okay, what's your feeling about that as a stack? And you recommend this, not recommend it?
So there's been some literature and some online personalities talk about, stacks being not as effective. I don't want to tackle that. I personally like stacks. It depends on which one you're talking about, though. For the Wolverine stack, I think that it's good. I think that the Wolverine stack would be beneficial, as a systemic treatment, or, trying to get your body back to healing. But I talked to a young kid about this, or a young man about this yesterday. If you have an actual injury, I personally believe it's better to not do the blends and actually get the correct dosage for each individual peptide. For example, the BPC 157, the range on that is, give or take 500 micrograms, right? Some people go a full gram, some people do 250 mcg. But when you do a blend and you just, the recommendation on the blend is say 5 units, you're just getting a small portion of what it is, and you may need more of the BPC 157. But I think the blends have a time and a place. But really, if you're going to attack an injury, I think it's probably best to separate those.
So I think Ryan's running around. So again, we were off the cuff today. Anything kind of at a deal here?
Yeah.
There was another one that I had talked to you about, and I don't remember what it was.
What do you have to do with?
Well, it was a peptide, and it was a person that was in here. The one with the large intestine that failed. Did we talk about that?
Yes. Well, so we actually.
So he had an epidural,
Yeah.
and that epidural is in your spine, and they interrupted something in his nervous system.
Yes.
And 4 days later, his large intestine was not working, and that was 2 years ago. So
We had talked about ARA-290.
okay,
And this is a really big one for anybody that may have neuropathy or nerve issues. Some of the research is showing that ARA-290 can be extremely beneficial. There's a few people that I know that are using it with varying degrees of success. But again, one of the gentlemen who is on it, and I was asking him what his progress was. He told me he forgot to take a dosage of it.
are you talking about the gentleman that I'm talking about?
No, a different gentleman. Yes. When you're on these things and you're taking them specifically, you need to be very regimented with it. You cannot miss a dose.
I ought to journal it.
You got to journal it, yes. And so that's something that I'm getting big into now is, if you want help with this research, well, I would like you to journal it and help others as well. Again, I go back to the weight loss thing. I've journaled my weight loss. I'm pretty well versed in it. But as we start branching out, there's a lot of things we can do to help others. If we're not going to get help the way that we think we should with, big pharma, and we've got to help ourselves, it's important. It's critical that we share that knowledge.
So it's impossible to get a doctor to come in and have this conversation. I mean, they don't have. I'm pretty close to a lot of doctors, and I've not been able to get them to come in because I'd love to hear their side of this story, and I'd like for them to share how difficult it is for them to get the peptides because they're not FDA approved. They know they work. They could educate us as to how we need to go forward and start beating the drum.
I mean, I know 2 doctors right now that are getting the peptides in the same avenue that I do, and they just can't get it. They cannot put it into their practice because of the FDA issue. So it's very interesting that the doctors. He's got some questions.
Oh, cool.
So just real quick, the doctors, they're interested in it too. And I had a procedure on my shoulder, and I had come up with a specific stack to heal my shoulder. And I was going through it with them, and he said, look, I can't give you my official opinion on this, but if I had the same injury you had, you're doing exactly what I would be doing. So the doctors, they want to talk about this.
No, they do.
They're just in a very peculiar position to not be able to do it.
And that's why you're out just educating people, and then they're kind of, let us see where it goes. I got a couple of questions. So can you repeat the peptide names? I tell you what, on my website, hyperbaric.plus, Plus, if you go to my website and you go to resources and you scroll down, there are several videos that Jesse and I have both watched and vetted and said, hey, this is good information. Just go down to peptides. There's a lot of information there. The BPC 157 and the TB 500. I'm going to call those primarily orthopedic. That's a stack that you would take for building, for repairing.
You call it a recovery.
For a recovery of any kind of musculoskeletal issue. The GLP-1 products, there's several of them. You'll see those all over the place. Ozempic, anyway, you've got all those nailed down. So go to resources and look at peptides. Then I've got a next question is, what yogurt do we eat? If you'll go on that same website, hyperbaric.plus, and look up gut health, there's 6 videos, and with doctors that many of you probably recognize their names, and they're interviewing William Davis. And then William Davis they're giving you the how to make that specific yogurt, and they keep referring to William Davis's book of Super Gut if you want to get really down into it and learn a lot about the other microbes that we're missing. If we ever took an antibiotic, the first microbe, the way they're talking, one of the first microbes that goes away is L-reuteri. And what happens is just like these are signaling peptides, that microbe is it's the traffic cop that's standing there telling the gut what to do. And when you take antibiotic, you lose that microbe, and it won't reintroduce itself to your gut unless you reintroduce it. So we're taking that microbe and we're using it in yogurt to ferment it. It's actually half and half is what we use as the base, and ultra pasteurized half and half is really important because you're going to ferment for 36 hours at 100 degrees. So you want to make sure there's no other bacteria in there. There's another way. If you're lactose intolerant, you can use coconut milk, and you can pasteurize the coconut milk, then introduce your L-reuteri and ferment that coconut milk. That would be your base. So anyway, go and watch those videos, and man, you can get on the internet. And again, one of the reasons I hate to tell people the internet, I watch videos until my eyes bleed. And a lot of the videos I won't post on my website because I've heard contradictions with other people that I think are good. And so I tend to stay in that lane of the people that I follow. And at the top of that resource list is several doctors that I believe, the several doctors that I would follow, and I would go check them out first. And I always cross-reference it. I go see what their competition says about the same thing. So anyway, there's a couple of good ways to answer those questions. And then testimonials. On the 8th day of taking BBC 157, I noticed a difference in my hands. It was that I would need neck surgery, and now I'm good to go. So I'm taking that as the 157. Like I just mentioned, a friend of ours, and I think Lynn knows him too, jumped off a roof and shattered his heels. In 3 days, he was pain-free, and this is an orthopedic injury he had for a long time. So there's something to these peptides, and you got to research it. You got to find your way. We have, if anybody out there has questions, you can get hold of, in fact, leave something on what you're watching, or call my office, and I'll get you connected to Jesse. And if you get on our website and you get on our newsletter, in our newsletters, we try to put Jesse's schedule where he's in here about every 2 weeks. Yeah. We have him for a day or two. Yep. So that'd be a good way to come in and do our little group deal.
I'm getting more involved for sure. Busy schedule, but definitely trying to get in here as much as I can.
Well, Jesse, thanks for being here under the gun. This was off the cuff today. Appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. And we're going to let this go till next week. I think Keith will be back next Thursday. But Jesse will be, I think we talked about Thursday at 6. Is that going to work for you? Or Friday at
We're talking about this Friday?
Y'all just pay attention to our website. Yeah. We'll have something posted there. We're going to come up with, I've got a lot of people coming to me asking questions. So we got to get him in here a little bit more. Yes, sir. Answer those questions. Yes, sir. Well, thank you all for being here. Look forward to having Keith back next week. Thanks for filling in at the last second. And until we see you next week, this is Paul at Hyperbaric.plus. We'll see you then. Thank you.